And hello, everyone. Today is August the 2nd, 2025, and my name is Crystal Myers-Barber. We're going to dive into a topic that is scientific, but yet we are going to see more of this. I've resurrected some people from YouTube's, at least one, that is no longer with us, the great Tom Horn, who passed away, I think, a year ago. And we're going to see what he has to say. This is, of course, dealing with transhumanism, DARPA, and just like my title says, the new genetic imprint. The Bible warned us in Matthew 24, verse 37, as the days of Noah were, so also will be the coming of the Son of Man. And we look at the scripture and we wonder, what happened in the days of Noah? Well, we know that there was a great flood that destroyed the entire earth, the world. It destroyed everything that God had made, all the people that were here, all the whatever they were. In Genesis, you can go through this, and there's debates about this topic. I listened to also the late Chuck Missler, who passed away in 2018. He went into depth on these teachings and discussed the Nephilim and what the sons of God really were, that to be fallen angels, and how their offspring produced, these different humans, I guess. And so the whole thing would be, to me, why would God destroy everybody but Noah and his family? And Noah was found in the Bible to be a perfect bloodline. And so he's not fallen into this offspring situation that it appeared that everybody else had fallen into. This is giving me a lot of, I've really pondered over this for a long time, but, now to be where we are in a very wicked time in history where everything has pretty much gone to hell, with evil, and we can see it out in the streets. We can see it in our world. It's worldwide. You can't just no longer say this is in, one city. This has gone up to new levels. And so today we're going to talk about DARPA. We're going to get into some of this, and I'm going to touch on this technology that people probably don't really know much about. This caused my computer to have at least 2 hours of me shutting it off a couple of times. So I couldn't go too deep into this topic because I don't want to get in too much trouble, But we are talking about a biblical situation. We are talking about a biblical time. And with that, I want to introduce a couple of things I plan to share. So thank you so much for tuning in. Also, make sure to follow me here on my media. I'm live. Actually, I'm live right now. And I'm live on YouTube and also on X and on Facebook. So please do follow me, because I'm going to be bringing you more content like this. Thank you so much.
This year's DARPA budget, that last year's budget not only had millions of dollars for creating the blueprint to edit our soldiers' DNA, but it had millions of dollars for biodesign, which is the creation of a new synthetic form of life that will be militarized and it will be immortal.
And so, just basically, we're talking about genetically changing and compromising what God has made. We are in a time, whether you know it or not, or many know it or not, where there are scientists out there under this name, DARPA, this complex team of people. We also know that there's called the Jasons. You can look this up. Jasons, it's a scientist team that's studying this stuff, and they are altering our genetics. They are doing it's called CRISPR technology. Let me see if I put that. I don't think I headlined it, didn't call it that. But basically, what scares me about this is they can go and not only change applications of this technology, is gene therapy, and they can use it for agriculture, biotechnology and research. And ethical considerations and challenges are when we are talking about this editing of genome editing, which would be altering human embryos. And so this is why I really want to call a little bit of attention to this. I want to show you this too. And we're going to come back to Tom Horn.
Defense Advanced Research
Sorry, I've got to remove this one.
Projects Agency, a mouthful. It is the
She's explaining what DARPA is.
Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, a mouthful. It is the most powerful, most secretive, most productive military agency in the world. The SecDef, at the time that the DARPA was created, Neil McElroy, he went to Congress to get the funding, and he said, this agency is going to create the vast weapon systems of the future. That is what DARPA does. They are always 20 years ahead of anything that you or I know. So any technology that is like,
I want you to really pay attention to the next thing she says.
what the hell was that I just saw and you're not supposed to have seen? That's DARPA. Right?
They were doing Neuralink in the 90s, right?
They were doing Neuralink in the 90s. Neuralink is being given credit to Elon Musk under his company for, putting the chips in the brain. Let's back that up.
It is like, what the hell was that I just saw and you're not supposed to have seen? That's DARPA. Right?
They were doing Neuralink in the 90s, right?
They are always doing things 20 years before you know about them, because they do what is called.
This is also, when he says Neuralink, they were not putting them in humans that I know of. I pulled up research and found out that they were practicing on monkeys, and they killed thousands of monkeys, and they had different processes. So they were practicing on animals, unless they, we just don't know. We really don't know. But this Neuralink thing is not new. That's what they're trying to say.
Blue sky technology.
Blue sky
right?
research and technology, yes.
And they have to be ahead of the curve. They have to be, amazing. Right? People forget there are at least 17 intelligence agencies. It's not just CIA.
17?
17. I mean, Google them, look them up, right? That's why there's now a director of national intelligence. So to stay ahead of the enemy, air quotes or not air quotes, to stay ahead, the federal government is always playing not just chess, but move the magic balls, right? And what's under what hat. And so things need to be hidden so that secrets can be kept.
And so I also want to tell you, and I learned this from watching Chuck Missler. Chuck Missler is now being hijacked and cloned by AI on YouTube. So please be very careful. Kona House is managing the videos. And they put out a post. I meant to bring this up to show you last week how AI is now, kind of pretty much taking Chuck out. So you have to be really careful what you're listening to. And they're also doing this from some other high-level pastors. So we really are in a time where we have to be really careful about the stuff we're hearing. But I learned from Missler that they have these disinformation campaigns. And so you see, maybe on YouTube, you see, who the hell are these people? Like, they have not just thousands, but like hundreds of thousands of followers. All of a sudden they come from out of nowhere, and they're like on, Tucker Carlson's like level status. I am 100% sure, literally, that they've been put there for either real true information or disinformation. And so the Bible told us that we be careful not to be deceived, at these times. And that's also in Matthew 24. So unfortunately, we are in a time where discernment is needed so much. We're going to go back. I'm going to bring us back over to, because I did not hear enough from late Tom Horn and his studies about what he found on transhumanism and what they're doing with gene editing, and also these super soldiers that we read about in Revelation that's actually happening right now. And right now it has happened.
According to DARPA's own budget, I actually photographed that and put it in one of my books. But so we could go on and on. But so that I'm not making this up.
And I also want to tell you, this video is like years ago, many, many years ago. So he's done his research, but it's now for us. We get to see it. We get to live it.
Let's just very quickly look at some of the most recent headlines. This is the front page of the GF 2045 Global Futures website. I picked this because this happened only just a few weeks ago in New York at the Lincoln Center. This was a gathering of the world's top futurists, top scientists, top genetic engineers, philosophers, people like Ray Kurzweil, who came from all over the world. They gathered to convene there, and what did they come there to discuss? Towards a new strategy for human evolution. And they literally are only one of the presenters, if you will, right now. This is happening at Oxford University, Stanford University. All of our leading universities now are hosting what they're calling transhuman conferences. But there's something else here that is even more interesting. Again, go look this website up. It's only 6 weeks old. And see this little button right here? And there's one over here. You can page through the different speakers that presented here in New York a few weeks ago, but I stopped it on these three. Why? Because this is a spiritual leader talking about science and spirituality. This is a rabbi talking about science and spirituality. This is a pastor talking about science and spirituality. Why? Because among the transhumanist camps, they believe that not only are we going to alter our physiology, and not only are we going to alter our neurology, but that by so doing, we are going to change ourselves spiritually. We are going to create.
And this is what happened in the Bible. If you go back and you look in Genesis, people could no longer connect to God. They were evil. They were wicked. It's not that they couldn't hear. It's just they were not connected. And Tom Horn is taking us through a very short presentation, and he's discussing how this is occurring. And so being shipped and the transhumanism movement that goes right with it. We have the person from World Economic Forum. I always remember his name when I leave the broadcast. I forget. Klaus Schwab. Humans are hackable. And so, yes, we're here. People, we're here. They're calling the patients for Neuralink. They're calling them P8 and P9. They did an update. I'll come back and do a video on this last week. Patient 8 and 9. So they have 9 human test trials for Neuralink right now.
Create a new form of human that will literally communicate with God in ways that Christianity has never even dreamed of. So they imagine now that humans are spiritual, but it goes so much deeper. Here's the Washington Post. Mice, men, and in between, scientists debate blending of human-animal forms. Here's the New York Times. Merely human? That's so yesterday. Here's Counterpunch. The Pentagon plan to create mutant super soldiers. Here's the...
Oh, and I also want to say... they have produced, let's see, it came in the headlines a few years ago, pigs with human blood. They also had a human heart in a pig. Dolly the lamb was cloned. They actually put a scientist in jail a couple of years ago. He cloned something like it was another lamb. They caught him and put him in jail. These are the things that we're not paying attention to because of the political stuff that's, in the news all the time. And we don't really know what's, going on, but we need to know.
Center for Bioethics and Human Dignity on the future of the human species. Here's Discovery News talking about part human, part machine transistors being built. Here's the Danger Room. The Pentagon looks to breed immortal synthetic organisms. That's what I referred to a moment ago. And I also want to say something about this one. Top Pentagon scientists fear brain-modified foes. Now, if you could see the date on that, June 9, 2008, and you might wonder why I would choose to include a slide that is 5 5 years old with these other newer slides. I do because this slide here has historic importance to me, and that is that it was the first time that the public began to understand that among some of the top scientific advisory panels that give advice to the U.S. Pentagon and the Department of Defense, among them there are those who believe that the human enhancement revolution represents the next arms race. That's how serious they are about it. In other words, in much the same way as the old Soviet Union competed with the United States for the buildup of nuclear arms in what is now called the Cold War, but it was the nuclear arms race. People like the Jasons. Who are the Jasons? It says they are the celebrated scientists on the Pentagon's most prestigious scientific advisory panel, and that's about all you ever will know about them. I have a friend that has above top secret security clearance, and he said, forget it, brother, you'll never know who the Jasons are. But suffice to say, they are among the intelligentsia, and they believe that the United States may already have fallen behind. Now, here's the thing. We don't know what they know. Why would the Jasons be telling the Pentagon last year that you have until the end of this year to get ahead of this technology, or you face falling, their words, unrecoverably behind in the race for human enhancement? Now, what are they talking about? They know something about Russia. Is this China? By the way, Iran has some of the most sophisticated laboratories doing research into this of anybody in the world. That's really scary, right? But what is it that they know we don't know? They also put out a white paper recently, I didn't bring the slide for it, called the $100 Genome, Implications for the Department of Defense. And it's a doozy because in it they talk about genotype and phenotype. And if you remember your basic biology from school, genotype, that's what you inherit from your parents, right? That's your genetic blueprint. That's why you were born a human and not a dog, because of your genotype. But phenotype, that's how it is expressed externally. It's how you walk. It's how you talk. It's why you're bipedal. It's your characteristics. It's your instincts. And the Jasons are saying to the Department of Defense, as we begin modifying people at the genotypic level, we are going to modify them phenotypically. In other words, they're going to walk different. They're going to act different. Their characteristics are going to be different. They may become more animalistic. They could be like something out of a demonic nightmare.
I mean, seriously, I never thought of this until I started doing this. I mean, I'm really hearing this for the first time. There's no way I have time to sit around and do research because my life is so busy, but it almost makes you wonder if this has not already happened with all the stuff that's happening with evil, and it's just really weird. Strange. Like, who would unleash this on, America? Would it be those countries that he just talked about? Did he know too much?
And they're saying you've got to get ahead of this technology because our enemies, our competitors are developing it at breakneck pace. And in the very near future, according to them, this decade won't elapse before you will see characters you couldn't have imagined. The Jasons are not the only ones urging preparedness for the coming human enhancement revolution. At the School of Law, Birkbeck, the University of London, this is one of the world's leading CSI schools, crime scene investigation, where if you're in law enforcement, you would go there to get degrees to work in CSI. How many of you know what CSI is? Okay. Well, if you've watched any of these TV shows, you know, crime scene investigators, they go into a crime scene, right? They rope it off, they cordon it off. Other officers can't even get in there unless they're specially trained. Then they start photographing everything, and then they start measuring in great detail everything that's there. If there's forensics information, they will put that into special containers. It could be a drop of blood. It could be a drop of sperm. It could be a hair fiber. It could be a footprint. It could be a tire track. If there's a body laying there, it might even be how the body is laying there. Then they collect all this stuff after measuring it. so that they can take it back to the crime lab and recreate it, put it in special containers so there's no cross-contamination of the forensic material, and then they recreate it in the crime lab. Well, anyway, so many weeks later, they come out of the crime lab, and now they are able to say to the field investigators something like, we are looking for a Caucasian male between the ages of 25 to 36 years of age. He's got blonde hair. He's probably part of an affluent community, or this or that or whatever, right? It's amazing what 200 years of analytical science have taught them how to read crime scene forensics to be able to come up with this information, and then that becomes a powerful tool in the hand of field investigators. Well, the Birkbeck School of Law put out a press release not long ago, and they said, as we start going down the human enhancement revolution, there will come a time when we're going to have to create new classes for crime scene investigation. Why? Because if we are looking at a crime scene that, let's say, was a violent rape episode, and the man that perpetrated this is part wolf, everything we know about forensics and profiling may have just gone out the window. And folks, that those kind of questions are going to have to be asked sooner than later was actually dramatically illustrated by a professor by the name of Ivan Balaban, who was doing research at the McGill University in Montreal, Canada. And what Balaban did, am I hypnotizing you? What Balaban did was he took the developing brain matter of embryonic quail, and he genetically engineered it into the developing brain matter of embryonic chickens. And when the chickens were born and they began to grow, they started exhibiting the head bobs and the vocal trills of quail. And what his experiment illustrated is that very, very complex behavior patterns can be transferred from one species to another species through genetic engineering. Well, how big, and with this one I'm going to rush to get done, how big might the implications from Professor Balaban's research be? Here is the front cover of the Global Governance 2025 at a Critical Juncture report. This is a report filed not long ago by the United States Office of the Director of National Intelligence, working with the European Institute of Security Studies. So in other words, the top intelligence agencies of the U.S. working with the top intelligence agencies of Europe, and produced this report. Now, what's this report about? This report tries to imagine by 2025, so within 12 years, between now and the next 12 years, what
So this was 12 years ago, just so you know.
Might be a threat that would cause all of the nations of the world to suddenly have to come together in a one world government in mutual defense of one another. What might the scenario be that would suddenly cause all of us?
Oh God, I can almost see this forming now. Before I go on, I just need to take a second. I didn't realize I was going to be playing this. Wow. What could it be? I mean, they're all against us right now, right? Is there anybody, especially right now with Russia and Trump putting the submarines out there? Strange. What could it be?
To have to rush together to try to protect ourselves from some unprecedented threat. And so they talk about the possibility of suddenly we detect an asteroid, and an asteroid is headed towards the Earth. It's going to be here in 1 year. I
think we're seeing that too. Isn't that in the news? Oh my God, isn't that in the news right now, the asteroid? I know it's in the news. I think it's going to be worse than that, actually.
All of a sudden, we need everybody on Earth to come together to try to come up with some kind of a defense. They talk about biological warfare. They talk about the collapse of the global economy. But then on page 35, things get a little bit interesting.
Wait a minute. Is he telling us that they planned this stuff? Is that what I'm discovering in my video that I didn't mean to discover? Oh my God. Well, let's go back and see
what they say. No forum currently exists for dealing comprehensively across the scientific community, industry, and government on measures needed to diminish the risks posed by the biotechnology revolution. In addition, biotechnology can drive new forms of human behavior and association, creating profound cross-cultural ethical questions that will be increasingly politically contentious. Few experts believe that current governance instruments are adequate for these challenges. For example, direct modification of DNA at fertilization is widely researched with a goal of removing defective genes. However, discussions of future capabilities open the possibility for designing humans with unique physical, emotional, and cognitive abilities. So in other words, ladies and gentlemen, when the top intelligence agencies of the U.S. got together with the top intelligence agencies of Europe and said what within the next 12 years could pose an existential threat to all life on Earth, among them they included the emergence of a new form of mankind. And not long ago in California, a whole series of House Foreign Affairs Committee hearings were held. California Democrat Brad Sherman, he was picked, by the way, to chair these HFA hearings because of his known expertise in the spread of weapons of mass destruction among terrorists. But what were these HFA hearings about? A writer for Congressional Quarterly, a writer by the name of Mark Stenzel, attended the HFA hearings, listened to them, then went back, wrote a special report for CQ magazine in which he described listening to the HFA hearings, he said, as sounding more like a pitch for a Hollywood sci-fi movie than it did a sober discussion of scientific reality, with all of its talk of super animals, super intelligence, and superhumans on the near horizon against which mankind is not prepared. All right.
Okay, so does anybody raise your hand when you see animals mauling people and killing them like dogs? You're like, what? How did this dog? And you see it so much. Or animals just suddenly attacking people, sea lions or whatever. I start wondering. Now I have evidence. They've changed stuff. They're doing stuff we don't know about.
With science, government, and occult societies foreseeing the emergence of new forms of humanity for the immediate future, I believe that we could be witnessing the unfolding of biblical prophecy. I don't have time to go through these examples, but the bottom one there is I think this could be a fulfillment of Matthew 24:37, as it was in the days of Noah. Why? This was the day when the watchers came down. All of the ancient records, both biblical and extra-biblical, tell us that they tinkered with the genetics of humanity. They did exactly what we are doing in laboratories all around the world now. They crossed over the species barrier, and ladies and gentlemen, it didn't end very well. I'm going to bypass all of that and go right to this. However, how do I know that we can prevail?
Wow, I absolutely, what's so amazing is I didn't know that he was going to say that. So I used a scripture in the beginning of my video, but I had no idea that this was part of his presentation, because this was my conclusion as well. Because I thought, why? I have thought about this for the longest time with my walk with Christ over, almost 25 years now. Why would God destroy humanity? Like he created, everyone. And was it just that they were so evil and wicked? But then you see him saving, in the ark, Noah and his family. And we even have Tom Horn saying, no, they corrupted their DNA. Something happened with the human being that God created. That they were so intelligent that they got themselves into a situation that just completely changed them. And here's my last point before we hear, I don't know if there's much more. I'll come back to that one second. Let's just see if there's anything else he was going to say.
Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all of the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you, and we can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth us. You believe that?
That is an incredible, strong ending. Turns out my favorite scripture right now, which is Luke 10:19, taking power and authority. But basically, I just want to say we have a fake teaching in the body of Christ, and I'm not owning it, because I say that Jesus is the way, he's the truth, the life, but they're teaching people that they're going to be raptured out of here, and that you won't. It's like escapism. And I'm not saying that Jesus' second coming is not going to happen. It's just being taught a certain way, so people think that they can bypass. As one of my next guest will be a pastor that lives in Pennsylvania, and his name is Doc Yeager, and like he says, all hell is breaking loose, and he can explain it better for us. And on August the 12th, I will have him on my show. So we have that coming up in a couple weeks. But basically, we need to be prepared spiritually, emotionally, not to fall into this escapism situation. We know that we're here, and there are things that are happening with this Neuralink that's being introduced, and many other ways that they want to somehow change our genome. And so we need to be prepared. This is the end of my presentation for today. I wanted to touch on this. I wanted to let everybody know that this is going on, and I'm so happy you were able to be here with me. I'm going to do other parts to this and also talk about transhumanism more as part of my streams. And I also want to come back and I'm going to show you the trials that we have with Elon Musk and the human trials with Neuralink, which is one of the, I think, 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 companies that he has. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there on my next video, where I will be showing this as much as they've released. I will try to bring, because we do know that AI is, as far as humanoid robots, that is, it is here. And the humanoid aspect has invaded many cities. Many cities, we have these robots walking around. And so with, at the same time, so much as is happening so fast, we must be prepared spiritually and mentally and not be deceived. And so I want to invite you all to see my next program. And thank you so much for being here with me today. Have an incredible evening. I'll be back very soon.